You're on the clock with Tyler Jennings and Jared Perkins, a Prospects Live podcast for everything MLB draft related. Join us as we discuss the biggest stories from college and high school baseball, bring you interviews from your favorite draft prospects, and break down live looks with Prospects Live analysis across the nation. Get ready, because you're on the clock with Tyler Jennings and Jared Perkins.
Alrighty, welcome to another episode of On the Clock by Prospects Live. I'm Jared, that's Tyler. We have a very special guest today with us, head coach Jay Johnson of the LSU Tigers. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Good to be on with you guys.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you join us. I have tons of questions to go through. But the first question I always ask our guests, just give a little bit of background on yourself. I know most people know who you are at this point, but just kind of your journey through amateur baseball and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I think the best blessing I had is I grew up in the house of a really successful coach. My dad was a great high school football coach, high school track coach, didn't lose in track for like 10 years. So the bar was always really, really high. And, grew up in a small town, played football, basketball, baseball, and ran track throughout high school. Really had to go to junior college, learn how to play baseball, to be frank. And it was a good experience. Went to Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego. And really, once I got done playing, like for me, like finishing a college career, like that was like the moon for me. I was very proud of that and knew I wasn't going to be a Major League Baseball player or anything like that. And immediately got into coaching and started coaching there and was an assistant, was very lucky. My coach that coached me in college offered me a position and he gave me a lot of responsibility. I mean, like 25 years old and coaching third and running the offense and making game decisions and all kinds of stuff. And it was a great environment to learn, not a lot of young coaches get that opportunity. And then became the head coach at Point Loma. Alma mater, was a great honor. And then probably the most important move for me, I went with Rich Hill to the University of San Diego for 8 years as the associate head coach. And I tell people all the time, like, he's one of the best coaches I've ever encountered in any sport, and really was critical for my development. And then went to Nevada for 2 years and really proud of what we did and won the first Mountain West championship for that school in any sport and loved it. Didn't really want to leave, honestly. And, the Arizona opportunity was really special. And, we were able to get to Omaha a couple times in 5 years and didn't want to leave there either, to be honest, but then get into LSU and obviously it's a great 2 years here. And this is my spot, hopefully for a long time.
Yeah, I love that. The one first question I want to ask, because one thing I've noticed with every stop that you've had, right, you've always had the person first mentality with your players, with your coaching staff, which I don't think you see often. Something I'm very passionate about myself is really pulling out the people behind the players. I used to do a podcast that really focused on the human element of the game. How has that become? How did you develop that as like a huge part of your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, I think I mentioned my dad was great at this, at the high school level, but he had a unique ability to show everybody in his programs that they were important and that they could create value for the team if they did their job really, really well. I remember, my heroes were like his running backs and they would live with us at times, you know what I mean? And he just had a unique way, whether it was the best player or just somebody just to pull out value in everybody and get them to make them know they were important to the team's success. And that's probably the root of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge because, right, is when people know what their role is, it makes them feel more empowered to kind of accept and embrace that role too.
Absolutely.
Tyler, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so I had just one quick question because I heard you mention you ran track as a younger man. What events did you run in track? I'm curious.
Yeah, the terrible ones, the 400 meters and the 800 meters. And, really all that was my dad was my football coach. And it's like, you're going to be faster and more athletic to be a better running back. And then, so I did that, probably hated every second of it, to be honest with you, but loved competing. And yeah, that was difficult. So finally, actually my junior and senior year would say, hey, we're going to go all in on this baseball thing. And I said, don't worry, I'll be ready by August, for football. But yeah, was probably to develop mental toughness. He always had an angle on things. But yeah, I wasn't loving any second of the track deal, that's for sure.
No, the 800 is the worst event ever.
Worst thing ever in life, honestly.
Yeah, I think I gotta agree with you on that. I did that in high school, so I don't miss it. Don't miss it at all. But back on track with baseball. You guys brought in Paul Skenes last year. This was a guy that I saw collegiate 92 and 95, more of a bullet slider. Was not the guy that you guys ended up crafting him into, being the 97 to 100 with a sweepy slider. Kind of just break down what changes you made with Paul going into that fall, and just tell me what it was like. The coach, what was tabbed as like the best collegiate arm, Eric Cole.
Yeah, no question about what you just said. I mean, that's as dominating a season as any pitcher can have at any level. I think with Paul, when we got him, I knew we were getting somebody impactful. And you start with the person. It was like, this dude is different. I mean, the maturity, responsibility, leadership skills, character, like you start there. And then that's the foundation of the work ethic, the attention to detail. I mean, he did everything right. And I mean, literally everything right. I mean, he left for spring training yesterday and we were talking. It was good to catch up. He's been working and busy this whole off season. So we got a chance to catch up, and it's the same guy. And the focus is like nothing I've ever seen before. So that's all him, Then I think, it wasn't really by design because we totally planned on him hitting at the outset. But once I started to see these strides being made as a pitcher, my thought was, okay, we probably can go to Omaha and have a chance to compete for a championship without him hitting. We cannot without him pitching. And so I was just looking at this, and I think the recovery thing that he was able to do by only focusing on pitching, I think that had a large impact on his jump. And so you put his work ethic, his character, maybe peeling back the workload from a position player standpoint. And then he put in a ton of work with Wes Johnson and did a great job. Wes did a great job with Paul. Paul put a lot of time in the strength and conditioning element. And his mentality was special. And I'll give you an example of I'd be walking in the players' lounge to grab a water on my way out to the field, 3 days before he's going to pitch. And, he himself was watching video of the next lineup and basically charting the game and playing it in his head. So, I mean, you got elite athlete, elite preparation, elite training, and it all manifests itself into just complete dominance.
No, you nailed it on the head. And I noticed too when I saw him in South Carolina, I think it was the first weekend of April, just warming up, he had the routine where he was on one side of the rubber and then he went to the next. Was that something that he planned on doing coming into the year, or was that something that you guys suggested to him?
Yeah, that, like I said, he just had this unique ability he would go out and strike out 12 in 6 innings and 2 hits or 3 hits, maybe a run, maybe. And he was always getting to that next click, whether it was adding deception, you know what I mean? Creating indecision with the hitter, pitch patterning different times through the lineup. It was just a different brain relative to that. We were having a conversation yesterday just about positioning our defense. It was there was positioning and then there was positioning when Paul pitched, because it was completely different things. I mean, just the impact is enormous.
Yeah. I mean, I think about a guy like Alex Gordon with the Royals. I worked for the Royals for a while, so I use that example. But it's that kind of mentality too trickles down through the entire clubhouse,
No
right?
question.
I mean, you have a guy who's going to be a leader. He's going to be an absolute example for everybody else there. And I think everybody that you talked to that went through the Royals organization said Alex Gordon was a guy everybody looked up to, that they could go ask questions to, that they wanted to learn from. And I have to imagine that was huge.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, I think about, leadership. Leadership's not always yelling at somebody or calling somebody out or those types of things. But, I mean, he had this unique ability when he knew we needed somebody to be better, to be able to confront and demand it out of them, but do it in this non-threatening way. And everybody respected him so much because of the type of player he was, the type of person he was. Like, he lifted everybody else's level. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that was more important than striking out like 250, whatever dude did. But it was super important. And we would not have, been, in my opinion, one of the greatest teams in college baseball history without Paul Skenes, obviously.
Yeah, and I mean, talk a little bit about that too, where you had Paul Skenes and Dilla Cruz, who both went 1-2 in the draft. Now you lose those guys going into 2024, but you've brought in some great talent. So what are some of your expectations going into this season?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for our team this year is, for the time being, to forget about 2023. It doesn't mean that we won't celebrate it or continue to celebrate it at appropriate times, because it deserves to be celebrated. Mm-hmm. But right now, it has no relevance on what's happening. I think, in regards to those two players, we don't need anybody to try to be those two players, because, I mean, you're looking at two of the best of all time, But it's the old Moneyball theory. You didn't fill Jason Giambi with one player. You fill him with three players, and player improvement. And we've been working our team hard. They've been working hard. And I feel great about the mindset of this. It has our undivided attention. And when you look at the challenge of playing in the SEC now, like, to have any success at all, it requires your undivided attention.
Yeah. Tyler, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I did want to ask about the fall too, because trying to think, Jake Brown is the one guy I wanted to ask, because this is a guy that I saw as a soft tossing southpaw with pitchability at USA's complex a couple summers ago. And then I read reports this fall, and he's in the running for an outfield spot. So I'm curious as to what happened there and what he's changed since he got to campus.
Yeah, I think he's the perfect LSU player, and what I mean by that, he's this combo of talent and toughness, and mental toughness, and he has this like it factor. Now he'll go through growing pains, playing in the SEC as a freshman. But he's a great athlete. And I went to see him in March last year. They were playing locally. He was pitching. We knew we were going to fight the draft a little bit with him as a pitcher. But I saw him take 3 or 4 at-bats, and just kind of the way he moved. And it's like he's on his toes, and he's got this explosiveness to his body that you don't see every day. I'm like, this guy's going to be a position player for us also. And so we're probably – and I think it's evened out a little bit, to be honest with you, but we're probably a little bit ahead on the mound than we were with position players, because we're replacing a lot. And he just provides a real explosive dynamic. He's an elite outfielder, He'll be the center fielder here at some point, no question about that. And he's been good on the mound too. We probably need the contribution on the position player side a little bit more, and he's shown an aptitude to do it. He's hitting and taking good at bats against some of our best guys. And that's kind of always the separator for me, is what do guys do against the best pitching? And he's hung in there pretty well.
Awesome. And you talk about the pitching. Thatcher Hurd's added like 15 pounds of muscle this offseason. You brought in Luke Holman, Justin Lower from Xavier. And there's a couple other guys that have popped up too. Kind of just break down the pitching for us, if you don't mind. Like, who stood out to you this fall, and what's the outlook for this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think it's a deep staff. When we got here, doing everything by design, like, that was the area of the program we needed the most help in, no question about that. And Coach Maneri, was great when I met with him. It's like, you're gonna have to go to work here, on this part of things. And so that kind of manifested itself into last year's staff, where we had 4 pretty significant injuries to key guys, and we're still able to win the national championship, and that was because of the depth of that staff. And then just going forward, I really believe in kind of what we do on offense. Like, if we are just in the game, we're going to have a chance to win. And so, it was almost like an overcorrection a little bit of whatever you want to call it, scholarship or investment in pitching and on the roster and roster spots and those types of things. So we feel like depth is the best quality. You mentioned Thatcher. For the last 6 weeks of the season last year, there was maybe, 2 guys in the country that were as good or better than Thatcher, Paul and Rhett Lauder. That's it. I mean, when Thatcher's at its best, he's in that conversation, and he's put in a lot of work in. You mentioned Luke Holman, As we were preparing to play Alabama last year, I'm doing all the scouting and getting us ready to go. I walked down the hall in the office to Jamie Tutko, who's our analytics guy, and it's like, hey man, this guy's going to be a problem. It's good that Paul is pitching against him. He just kind of caught my eye as a guy that has serious pitchability and feel and competitiveness and all those types of things. And that's absolutely been the case. Gage Jump, who a lot of people have kind of forgotten about maybe because he missed last year because of an injury. He's really good. He's really good. Javen Coleman, who's back to full strength, this year has thrown the ball really well in the preseason. And then you got these guys that pitched in Omaha successfully last year with Guidry, Nate Ackenhausen, Griffin Herring. And then you got guys that have improved from last year, like Aiden Moffitt and DJ Primo. And then the new guys, Cam Johnson, Kate Anderson are going to be really good. And I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out in there. But we really went hard at trying to develop a deep staff. And I think I feel good about it right now.
As you should. I also heard a rumor that Aiden Moffitt's touching 100 now. Is that a true thing?
He hit 100 yesterday. Yes, yeah, he did throw. He did throw 100 yesterday, and proud of him. It's a good story for players, and I think this happens at programs like LSU. You're not always going to be ready for this right out of the gate. It's a big jump. Going from high school baseball to the top of the SEC is like going to the moon, and so he didn't pitch a lot, but now he's got a chance to be pretty good, and so proud of him and where he's headed.
Awesome to hear that. Jerry, go ahead if you have any questions.
Yeah, the one last one I kind of think of here too is every place that you've stepped foot in, right? You've built a winning culture, and I think it starts by bringing in the players, and that's always important. But what have you done to kind of sustain that over the years, right? You always have new players coming in, players going out. What's been the keys for you of building a winning culture?
Yeah, I think maybe personally for me is keeping myself in my lane of okay, how can I positively impact those things? And for me, it's recruit, add talent. The focus here is always on development. Every day, that's a real thing. A lot of people talk about it, but that's the number one job of all of our coaches. Not getting too far ahead of yourself. What do we need to do right now, today? And then just having discipline to repeat that. So I have to hold myself accountable to that. Then with the players, it's okay, what are the best qualities that you want your program to be about? And then it's getting those transferable from one group to the next. And you do that with really good player leadership. You mentioned Dylan and Paul, but guys like Cade Beloso, Gavin Dugas, that's as good a player leadership as I've ever seen last year. And then these players saw how impactful that was on our team last year. And now you guys got guys like Hayden Travinsky, Alex Milazzo, Tommy White, Thatcher Hurd, Will Helmers, Josh Pearson. Those guys are trying to emulate that. And then, you just try to coach them along in that. And I've always believed coaches a lot of times will complain about players not being leaders. We have to teach them to do that, or not being selfless. We have to teach them to do that. They don't come in with any background on that. And if you do get some background, we're very lucky, but you have to make that part of their development.
Yeah, I think you hit it kind of on the head too. I use my Royals example because I worked there for such a long time, but they were so interested on drafting guys based on their attitudes, their personalities, what they were going to bring into the clubhouse, just as much as they were talent-wise as well. They took a lot of your guys that you had recruited as well, like Blake Mitchell, Ben Kudrina, and Carter Jensen. So you can kind of see some of the similar philosophies there.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, they've crushed me since I've been here. That's for darn sure. And I didn't recruit, Carter or Ben.
Yeah.
I tried to save them right before the draft, right when I took the job, but I'm sure they're doing well because I know they're plenty talented. So.
Yeah. But Tyler, I'll turn it over for you for any final questions.
Yeah, you mentioned Tommy White. I'm interested to hear what's developed on that front. Because there I say I grew up an NC State fan, so seeing him play in Raleigh his freshman year was amazing. But then, of course, he went to Baton Rouge, playing third base. The bat is still exceptional, even though he in my opinion, I think it's a bit too aggressive because the chase rate's still a bit too high for my liking. So I want to learn if like anything's changed on that front this fall and during preseason that really stood out to you.
Yeah. First off, he's an amazing competitor. I've been very fortunate to have some great hitters. Great hitters, whether it's Chris Bryant, Austin Wells, Jacob Berry, Dylan Cruz, Tommy, like he's easily at the top of that. Like he's a 1A type guy, with all of those guys. And I think what makes him unique is competitive. There's very few guys that can hit for average and power and do it effectively. He does that. I think, what I really appreciate about him is one bad pitch in an AB, like let's say he chases out of the zone, he's right back on it the next pitch, like better than anybody that I've ever seen. He's shown good plate discipline here these first couple weeks of the spring. He's walked 6 or 7 times and just has such a solid understanding of what he's doing. As far as the third base thing, I was looking at like his numbers and I was like kind of confused because I thought he did a really good job at third base for us. I only remember one error that negatively impacted any game that he made for 71 games. At third base, college baseball, that's pretty good. And I'm proud of him for saying, hey, I'm good enough to do this. And we provided the opportunity to do it. And then we worked really hard. Like he worked really hard. That development piece last fall was big and he's got a lot of pride in it. He's such a good competitor. Like, and the best players I've had, they all have that. Like what's the next, like we're talking about Paul, what's the next layer? And he's gone and gotten that. And I think we'll continue to see that this spring.
That's awesome to hear. Jared, last thing for you. Let's go ahead and do you want to do like a little on the clock segment with Jay here?
Do you want to do rapid fire?
Yeah, we can if you want.
I'll let you go for it.
Okay, cool. Go ahead and fire up the graphics, sir.
All right.
All right. So first thing, this is just gonna be random. It doesn't have to be baseball related, but what's your favorite thing about Baton Rouge so far that you've been here for at least 3 years at this point now? Like what's the thing that's really pulled you in for the culture around there?
Yeah, this stadium. This stadium in a close game where we have a rally going. Like this is the best this is the best thing about this place is this ballpark and the fans that come into this ballpark and support our team.
Awesome. Favorite moment, it doesn't have to be LSU, could be Nevada, Arizona, but like favorite coaching moment that you've had?
Yeah, the national championship. And it's I've been very blessed. There's so many good ones. I remember my very first weekend as a Division I assistant coach at San Diego. We swept Texas after they'd won the national championship. And I remember Coach Hill walking in after. He's like, hey, just so you know, it doesn't always go like this. And I think we got killed by like UC Riverside on Tuesday after that. And but yeah, I've been very lucky at every stop. Going to Omaha twice at Arizona. First year, we were picked to finish 10th out of 11 in the Pac-12, and we made it to Omaha. Like that was a great thing. Winning the Super Regional in Tucson in 21 against Ole Miss. That's always one that stands out. Winning the championship at Nevada. That was a great team. Like I don't know how we didn't get into the NCAA tournament. That's still
I was bitter about that too.
That is still like the most. So losing the national title game in 2016 and not going to the NCAA tournament with that team in 2015, easily the two most like heartbreaking whatever days of my coaching career, because that team could have easily won a regional. Like there was no question.
Yeah, there's no doubt that team was loaded.
All
right. Final question before we let you go. Trying to think. Jared, if you have a good one off the top of your head, feel free to like chime in.
I'll go with so out of Baton Rouge, Tucson, Reno, and San Diego, best food. Which place? I feel like I know the answer, but
yeah, that's definitely Louisiana.
Yeah.
However, I mean, like, I haven't been in a bad place. Like, in Reno, like some of those restaurants downtown. Campo, Silver Peak. Like I remember having a lot of good dinners there. The San Diego, Tucson. I'm a California burrito guy at heart. And then, man, I have to watch myself out here. There's so much good food, and I'm only 5'7", so I gotta keep it in check.
I love it. Love it. Coach, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. We know you're busy with the season upcoming, and we're wishing you nothing but success, and can't wait to watch you all play this year.
Cool. Thanks for having me on, guys.